I'm Dr. Deb Butler, and you are listening to Thinner Peace in Menopause and Beyond. This is episode number 352. Welcome to Thinner Peace in Menopause and Beyond. This is Dr. Deb Butler, Master Life and Weight Coach, and as always, your coach. If you're a woman and you're smart and you're successful and you've been struggling with weight your whole life, and now menopause is making it harder than ever, and you are ready to make this the last time you ever have to go on a diet again, then this podcast is for you. Stay tuned. Well, hello, all my dear friends all over the world. Happy New Year. Welcome to 2023. Amazing. Another year has gone by and a new year is starting. And I can't think of anything I'd rather do for my first podcast of 2023 than introducing you to another one of my most beloved clients that I worked with last year. And I'm hoping that she'll be an inspiration for you in this new year for whatever it is that you would love to do for yourself. And if that includes learning how to take better care of yourself, better self-care, how to be nicer to yourself, how to be kinder to yourself, then maybe you are going to love this interview because that's everything that I do with my clients. In the end, they lose weight. But I will tell you what, this is not what I would call a typical weight loss program. I call it Thinner Peace for a reason, because I believe that learning how to train your mind to become peaceful is the only way that you can ever take loving care of yourself and give yourself the type of self-care that you actually need. So everything that I've done for the last 6 years now, 352 podcasts, for those of you who are new, welcome. And let it be known that I have 5 to 6 years of podcasts, weekly podcasts, where I've shown up and I have taught you something to change your life. And if you're here and this is your first time, may this be the podcast that changes everything for you. Even if you've never, ever heard anything else that I've talked about, may this be the podcast for you. And may it be so inspiring for you that you go back and start listening to some of my other podcasts. And I might recommend that if you're very, very new and you don't know a lot of the tools that I teach for the Thinner Peace process, you can always go back to the first podcast because my philosophy and my tools have not changed. I've updated them, I've improved them, but they are basically what I think works, period. And the basic tool that I started with that changed my life forever was this. Do you know how to eat when you're hungry and stop when you're full? It doesn't sound like it's such a difficult question, but I will tell you that's why I have had so many people join my groups, so many people sign up for individual coaching, which are the two things that I do, only because they want to learn how to eat when they're hungry and stop when they're full. Because it is the most basic connection that we have with our body that we have lost from years of dieting. And dieting, what I mean by that is not listening to your own body's needs. That's all I really mean by dieting. The most important thing that I teach is how to listen to your own body by starting with eating when you're hungry and stopping when you're full, and understanding the numbers that can happen between being hungry and being full. So you can be starving at what I call a -10, or you can be stuffed, which is what I call a +10. But In between are a lot of numbers. And what I teach is all about eating between the twos, starting at a -2, which is the whisper of hunger, and stopping at a +2, which is the whisper of fullness and satisfaction. And truly, it is, I believe, the way our bodies were wired. And I've just applied numbers to give your brain something to do, to rewire itself. So today, I want to introduce to you a client of mine that I worked with last year. Her name is Kim. And she really wanted to come on and do this interview with me because she thinks that she's different than some of my other clients and that she's had some different experiences that she really wanted to share with you to give you hope about whatever your process would be. Because it's not like she just hired me and out of the gate she started. It really took a while for her to get with the quote unquote program. And she talks about why that experience was so hard for her. And I really believe that you will be able to relate to that. She's very, very good at expressing herself, but she's also come such a long, long way in our work together. And I'm so proud of her. And so sit back, take a walk, take a bath, whatever it is you do when you listen to this podcast, and listen to this beautiful, inspirational interview that I did with Kim. And then at the end, I'll get back on and say a few words. Enjoy. Hi, Kim. Welcome to my podcast.
Hi, Dr. Deb. So good to see you.
It's so good to see you too. And we have so much to talk about. We've been working together. Like, how long have we been working together now, do you think?
You know, I was thinking about that. I think it's like 8 months.
8 months. A lot has
Something
happened.
like that.
A lot has happened in 8 months. And that's what we're going to talk about today is
Yeah.
all the changes in Kim. Because part of the reason you're here is number one, you asked me, and I would easily ask you to because I know you have so much to share. But I think it's so interesting the reason that you wanted to be on this podcast. So I'm going to start with my first question, which is, what made you sign up for the mini session? And then we'll kind of get into it. But what made you sign up for the mini session? Do you remember way back when?
So I had been listening to your podcast for some time, and I'm in menopause. So I don't even know exactly how I found you, but I was looking up weight loss. And then I saw the menopause in your title. And that just was like, whoa, I've got to check this out. And I did, and everything just clicked. Everything you said made so much sense, and it wasn't complicated. And I think, like most of your clients, I've done every diet since I was 12.
Yeah, me too.
That I could be part of it. And so I was feeling terrible about me and who I was and how I looked. And you said something in one of your podcasts about a free consult. And I thought, I've got to do it. And then during the consultation, you just were able to open up so much for me of areas that I needed to grow. And it just made sense. And it's been such a journey. And there's so much more, I'm sure, to come in my journey. But it's been life-changing for me. And I know everyone says this, but it's not just about the weight.
Yeah.
And yet some of it is about the weight. I got to shop in a regular sized clothing store, and I bought a not plus sized outfit. And that was thrilling for me. And it's been decades since I've been able to do that. So that was very exciting. But that's just the tip of the iceberg of what has come out through all of this. And I think you and I have talked about the timing of me starting to work with you. I had
I'm going to stop you for 1 second because you're getting into the good, juicy stuff. So hang on for 1 minute. So basically, the reason that you signed up for the mini session is because you were miserable.
Yes.
And the reason that you said yes to doing the work with me is you felt that I got you, like when we did the mini session,
there was so much that you were able to get out of, I think, like 25 minutes together. It was amazing. And you dug in, and I wanted more.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. And as you've already said, you got more, but we're going to get into it slowly because
Okay.
there's so much to share. But, I think a lot of people start in this place of just being miserable and not happy with the way they looked and just not happy about themselves, but thinking that it's the weight that's causing all the problem.
Yep.
And that
Yep.
was that way for you in the beginning.
It was. It really was. And it took a while for the weight to start coming off,
Mhm.
even though you and I were working together. And in retrospect, I'm so glad because it laid the foundation that I needed in order to really lose the weight and do it as a permanent situation instead of, if I just eat 2 meals a day for a week, maybe I can lose a couple pounds type of thing. It's not like that. It's that I was ready to actually lose weight and do it in a way that was sustainable and good for me, not just eating only a little bit of not bad, but cruddy food, food that's not fueling you and then not eat anything else that day. It's not about that.
And
It's about
that's the way it
taking care of
was.
myself. And that is the way it was.
Yes. And so now what I would like you to do, because this is really kind of really juicy and I love it, is the reason that you wanted to do this podcast. If you want to tell everybody why you asked me to do this podcast, I would love for you to share why you wanted to do it and a little bit about how it all started out, because I think it's inspirational and I think it'll resonate with a lot of people.
Well, we had talked, I think what you're alluding to is the way I was saying that so many people dug in and they say in the podcast that, I did every single thing you asked me to do and I was just gung ho on it. And at first I was embarrassed, but I really wasn't like that. I think I had a hard time even really believing that this could truly happen. And I have always had so many things going on in my private life and in my work life, and, as everyone does. But I saw each change as a crisis. And I did have more of those sort of things come up while I was working with you. And I'm so thankful that I was working with you when some of these things came up because you were able to keep me from going under on all of this and see the learning potential and see the different ways of looking at things instead of being a victim or being a martyr through the whole thing and doing things that I didn't think were the right thing, but I went ahead with it anyways. And then I had all this resentment and these other feelings that were built up. And it's not a pleasant way to live, and it doesn't deepen our relationships with other people. So by having you in place when these things happened, I could grow so much more because of that instead of falling so much more. I don't know if that makes sense.
It makes total sense. I think what you're saying is that you had a lot of circumstances happen where you could have just eaten yourself under the table.
And would have.
You were eating your emotions when you first came to me and you were feeling out of control with food and you were feeling miserable about yourself and your body and that you couldn't control yourself. A couple weeks ago, when you asked me if you wanted to do the podcast, I think one of the things that you said is that you wanted to tell people that you didn't do all the things I asked you to do in the beginning. And I want to talk about that because you aren't the only one, believe me. Everybody has their own way of being able to do this work. And I know for me, I'm in it 100% with my client and with you. And with you, you were not used to putting yourself first when it really came to you personally. And the way that that showed up, and I'm sharing this because you've changed so much because number one, I didn't give up on you. And two, you didn't give up on you because either of those things could have happened.
Right.
because it was really hard for you to show up for an appointment. You couldn't get your time
Mhm.
straight. I mean, and you are a brilliant woman. You're a real estate agent that outsells everybody. And I know you don't outsell everybody, but you're good
Thank
at
you.
it. Let's just put it that way. So we know you have a good brain and we know you know how to do it. And yet, when it came to showing up for appointments for yourself and getting the time straight, was
Mhm.
a very difficult thing to do in the beginning.
It was
I
because I
know.
didn't value myself,
And
and
that's why it's like, I know that if it came to selling a house, I know that you could show up and I know you
mhm,
could do all the things, but when it came to showing up for you, it's like you got confused.
I
And
did.
I use that as a stepping stone for getting into your head about look at. I know you're a lot smarter than this, and I want you to see what you're doing to yourself because this is not rocket science to get Pacific
Yes,
time and
I think
Central
that's
time
exactly what
together.
you said. Mhm.
I did. I was pretty straight on about it, but only because I knew your potential. Only because I knew your potential and I knew you wanted it. And I knew you weren't doing it to do anything really bad. It's just that you didn't know how to do it for yourself. You just didn't know how to do it.
That also is the beauty of working with you,
Tell
Doctor
me,
Deb, is that you did call me out on my crud, and you even said this, "No judgment, Kim, but I want you to see this. I want you to see what you're doing." And it meant that I wasn't so embarrassed that I couldn't continue with you. It meant that I could love myself with it. And it meant I could continue. It meant that I could grow from it instead of put a wall up, which is what I would have done before. And I think that beginning time where I wasn't losing so much weight, I
well,
really
you
think
weren't
that
even coming to the appointments.
but I did come and I wasn't on time and I was texting you, are we on video? And you're like, we've done this 3 times already. You know, we're not on video, and things like that. And during that time was when I was learning how that this really was for me. And
Yeah.
it's okay that this was for me. It was okay to make that investment and it was okay to make that priority. And then it sort of clicked. And you were
Sure did.
patient. You were very patient with me
Because
to wait.
I knew, and you knew too. We both knew. We both
It can
knew that
happen.
if we just stuck it together, we would get through it
Hmm.
because I knew you wanted it and I knew you could get it. And you somehow knew it too. And you just said, you just take my hand and pull
I
me up.
did.
I'm going to do it.
Yep.
And that is the beginning of this story is that it took you a minute to
Hmm.
want to take care of yourself and to
Hmm.
prioritize yourself, to make these appointments a priority, to start food journaling. Like in the beginning, food journaling and all of that. And it's that way for a lot of people. It's not just you. But if we take you from there to here, now,
Night and day. Hmm.
night and day, because you can prioritize yourself now. And how much weight have you lost? You started out a little slow, but how much weight have you lost?
32 pounds.
32 pounds. So
Yeah.
it's coming
And
off.
it's coming off. And it's not through deprivation and grit strength or anything like that. It's through taking care of myself. And it's so much better than any other diet I've had where I did lose weight, but it was a diet. It's better because it is the last time. And I feel really confident about that because of the way I've learned from you of how to take care of myself and how, yes, I can eat anything I want. And if I eat a lot of sugar, I don't feel good. Why would I keep doing that? I did for decades, but now I don't want to. I know I don't want to. And that is the big difference. It's a big difference.
It's a
So,
huge difference. And there's
yeah.
another really huge difference that I want you to talk about, which is this. And I want to do a podcast just on the title, which is to feel it and not fill it. And
Yep.
you, my darling, are a perfect example of what has transpired over these 8 months of that you have gone through some troubling times and you have done it without filling emotional holes, without eating your emotions. That's why
So
you've
true.
lost 32 pounds, is because even though you've had negative things happen to you and you've had negative emotion, you have decided not to eat through it. You have felt it and it didn't feel good, but you would
No,
rather feel it than fill it.
so true. It's so, so true. And I was a binger,
Mm.
totally. And I don't think I've binged since I started working with you. It's
Why do you think
um,
that is?
well, because of the value that you've taught me about, it's not about if other people see you eat it. That doesn't matter. If eating and hiding and masking the evidence of what you've done, it
Mm.
doesn't matter, because what matters is how do you feel about it and how does your body feel about it? And is this what you want to do for yourself? Like if I knew my kids when they were growing up, if they had something very stressful or hard coming up, and I would always make sure we had more vegetables and that they were getting balanced meals and things like that. And then for myself, I know I'm going through something really, really stressful and I'm eating a box of bonbons. It didn't make sense. And just learning how to parent myself and knowing that it's from inside. That's why it's not a diet, because it comes from inside instead of outside. So feeling your feelings has been hard.
Feeling
And
your feelings.
yeah, my feelings have been hard. And it was hard to even start. That's why in the food journals, whether you were at a -2 or a +2, I had no clue
In the
where my
beginning.
body was. It
That's
took
right.
me a long time, I think, to even allow myself to get hungry. I think I was a lot of zeros in the
You
beginning for
were.
when I
That's right.
started.
That's right.
Yeah. And you said to me one time, "What are you afraid of? You afraid of being hungry?" I think in some of your podcasts, you've made comments about, the starving children in Africa are not going to get anything from me eating more. And my husband jokes about the clean plate club that I grew up with. And so it took me a while to even trust myself to be able to get hungry and to be able to key into my body again to actually feel what was happening, whether I was hungry or not.
Mhm.
It took time and it was so worth it. So, so worth it. And feelings is not always fun. You have that analogy of the beach ball. And I remember trying to figure out, well, how do I let it go?
About
Okay, I'm
feeling an
holding it.
urge.
Yes,
Uh-huh.
yes, by feeling an urge or knowing that I'm really scared or whatever. And you helped me one time with a panic attack that just came up as we were talking about something that I knew was coming, a big change that I knew was not going to be comfortable, but still felt like it was the right thing to do. And you walked me all the way through it, feeling it in my chest and how hard it was to breathe. And then it moved up to my throat and went into my cheeks. And it took time. You took the time to sit with me and let me feel my emotions. And then when it was calm again, it was done. And that was the beauty of not resisting forever, because you have to continue resisting. By going through it, you're done.
Wow. That is brilliant. And I do remember that you're talking about when you feel the emotions, once the emotion goes through you, it's over. When you
Mhm.
resist it, it's always trying to get in.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
maybe what you're talking about here is the reason that you let yourself feel it and you don't eat it anymore, because you rarely, and you have been through some things. I mean, I have absolutely coached you through some things that were difficult,
Hmm.
and you let yourself feel what you were feeling. You didn't use food the whole time. I mean, there were moments
Right.
of
But they
fogging.
weren't, yep, but they weren't like it used to be. They weren't the binge. They were one or two cookies, not 10.
What amazed me and still amazes me is how you just wouldn't do that to yourself anymore. You just stopped it.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that for yourself? Because that's quite amazing that you did that.
I really hadn't thought about it that way, but you're bringing it up now. It is amazing.
Think about
And
it.
I'm proud. I'm proud of that. It was a huge part of a struggle. And because I'm able to not do that, now I don't have all that negative self talk about it. Because always afterwards, it was like, why did you do that? What were you thinking? That was the worst thing you could have done. And just, blow it type of thing. And now, even when I eat something that has sugar in it or something like that, it's like, okay, so let's go back to the negative two, positive two, and just move on. And there's not that beating myself up and tearing myself down that was happening so much.
We're naming some really big changes. Probably the third big change is how you learned how to be kind to yourself. Because that's really what you're talking about right now
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
instead of beating yourself up, you could figure out why you did what you did. At least that's what our coaching sessions were about, was
Right.
just trying to figure out what happened so that you could be more aware of why you did what you did. It really isn't about the food. It's all about
No.
why you do what you do, which is what you're saying. But that self kindness that you learned how to do, I think that's the main reason you were so miserable in the beginning is you were just so mean. You made yourself feel so bad, you and most women. And you think, well, maybe I'll just lose the weight and I'll start being nicer to myself. But you learned how to be nice to yourself. And lo and behold, you're losing a lot of weight. But first, you had to learn to be nice to yourself. Am I correct?
Absolutely.
And
And that was
first,
my saying that you and I came up with is I'm learning to be kind to myself by saying no to things that don't serve me.
and that was your
And
compelling reason to do the
that
work.
was, yes, and still is. I
And
still write it down every day. And that was at first hard for me to write that down. Like, why am I doing this? And now it's just like the food journals. I look forward to doing them. I want to write them. It's kind of part of my me time now
Mhm.
is writing down the mantra things that I can do this. I have done this. I am making
Yeah,
this
talk about
happen.
that
Yep.
a little bit because
Yeah.
one of the things that I touched on with you when you were feeling very, very low about yourself and not having a very good opinion about yourself, even though I can say I think you're a wonderful mom, you do great work in the world, and you're a great partner to your husband. This is just me saying this. This is
Thank
how I see
you.
it. And you couldn't see any of that. And when you started really seeing your own goodness,
Mm.
is when I think when you started agreeing with me.
Yeah.
It's like you were thinking you were the drudge of the earth. And I'm saying, like, I don't know, like, how in the heck? Because you started real estate when you were 50, you changed
Mhm.
careers totally. Why did you end up changing careers? Because
Well,
it's
we
kind of
had
important.
Yeah, so we had our own business.
Yeah.
Well, my husband had his own business and it went through a situation and it ended up closing down.
Mhm.
And so we had sunk everything into that business.
Mhm.
And so at 50, we were starting over with savings and trying to be able to retire someday and all that kind of stuff. And so I really put myself into the mindset that I had to go from 0 to 60, in a few seconds. And I did make things happen and I did grow a good business and
At
I'm still
50,
benefiting. Yeah,
with
I'm
that
still
thinking,
benefiting.
with
Mhm.
that type of thinking is that I have to do this no matter
Mhm.
what. And
Mhm.
we used that as a metaphor for it's the exact same thing you have to do here.
Right. And I wrote it on a Post-it note. I am going to make this happen. It was all I could
Because
accept.
that's the thought that you used when you got into real estate. It was
Yep.
something like that, right?
Yep. And then it's so funny because one day I took the Post-it down and I put a new one up that said, I'm making this happen.
I remember.
And I did that on my own. And then when you and I were talking after that, I said that to you and you said, well, that's called leveling up. So you have grown in your confidence and your acknowledgement of what you're doing. And
Believe it.
yes, exactly.
And it's so true because you're doing it just like you did that. And I think that's a thought you probably use a lot for a lot of things now, because now you know you're the one that makes things happen and that you're capable of making things happen, right?
I
It's you
am.
and your mind and your mind management. Now that you know how to do that, I think that's why this is life changing for you,
Yes, I
is because
agree.
you realize that about yourself now.
With your help. Hmm.
It's amazing. I mean, you're a very powerful woman, but you weren't recognizing that in the beginning about anything about you. And now it's like, I just love that you can see your light and that you can appreciate it. And that's why I do the work, is because I see it. I saw it, but what good is that?
Yeah, and I truly did not see it. And you would say something, well, Kim, you've done this or that, and I would always belittle it or
That's right.
poo-poo it. And you'd have to say, wait a second, did you do that? Well, yeah. Okay, you did that. Then being able to acknowledge it and not feel like it's not that I'm being boastful or anything like
Well, I
that. I
don't even care if
am.
you are being boastful. It's okay.
It's
You're
okay.
amazing.
I did do it and I am doing these things and they're good. They're good things.
I think you're amazing. And I think it's been an amazing process, and we're still working together. What would you say to anybody that's thinking about wanting to work with me after your experience? What would you say to them?
I was thinking about that. I would say pick up that phone and set up the appointment, the free one. Do it in a heartbeat because there's just no explaining how you can get inside and pinpoint the things that are needed. It is a gift that you have and that you give to people. And I know this sounds funny, but it is a gift that keeps on giving in every single person because you plant those seeds in there. I remember one time thinking, why am I wanting vegetables all the time? And it's like, does she do like subliminal stuff? The things that you bring out are so powerful and so truthful. And so by doing that free consultation with you, there's just no getting around the benefit of it. So do it. What do you have to lose? You have nothing to lose except for the negative and the burden that you've carried. Somebody said to me today as I was walking into the office, as a gentleman said, hey, it's the incredible shrinking woman. And I said, what? And he goes, every time I see you, you're a little bit smaller. And I started smiling. He goes, except for I have to tell you, you seem like you're taller. And I thought about that a little bit. And I think I am because that burden is gone. And other people can lose that burden too. We don't have to carry that around, even though so many of us women do. And we're just so used to it, we don't even realize that we're doing it. But we don't have to. And you're so good at showing us that it is there and that you can put it down.
So you're not carrying the burden anymore. And now you seem so much taller. It's almost like it's the way that you carry yourself.
That's exactly it.
The difference of
Yep.
carrying a burden and letting the burden go, and it just makes you seem like you're taller. I love that. Well,
Mhm.
it has been an amazing experience working with you, truly. And all I can say is that you are amazing. And I'm so happy that you actually think you are. And thank you again. And I've loved every minute of working with you.
And I have too. And I really want to emphasize that it has been life saving, life changing for me to work with you. And it is something that I sure hope other people take advantage of.
Thank
So
you, Kim, so much.
thank you.
Okay. Bye bye.
Bye.
Well, what did I tell you about Kim? You understand why she thought she was so different? See, because usually, and it is really true, most people, once they decide to work with me and pay the money in the group or individual, most of the time, they're gung ho. Most of the time, not all the time. But with Kim, it really wasn't that way. She's really brilliant and really unbelievable in her job in terms of how she sell houses, is what we were talking about in the interview. And yet, when it came to simple things like keeping an appointment and what time it was and where it was. It's not on Zoom, it's on a phone call. She couldn't remember. And she's brilliant. And what we talked about that I hope you heard is that she had so little sense of her own self-care. She was very, very good at taking care of other people, including her clients in her job, and almost no clue how to reserve time for just herself personally. It was like it totally confused her whole brain. And how she came back to herself to be able to use this thinner piece process that I teach and taught her is what I thought was worth all of you listening to. So I hope you really got a lot out of her journey and how she came back to herself, how she came back to deciding that she was worth taking care of herself and loving herself, that she actually made that decision and she had never done that before. And I'm sure a lot of you are the same way and don't even know that you're doing it. She didn't know. She didn't know until I told her more than a few times and kept bringing her back, because that is what I'm good at, is making sure that all of my clients, once they're working with me and I accept them as a client, that they get what they want and they succeed. And I'm good at that too. So between the two of us, it's been an amazing process. And I hope you enjoyed every minute of it. And if you're like Kim was, or you're like part of what Kim was, but you totally relate to what she's talking about, and you are ready to make this the last time you ever have to lose weight again, in menopause or not, but especially because of menopause, then please go to drdebbutler.com/work with me, and you can set up a mini session where you and I can talk and I can tell you if I think you'll be a good fit for this process, because if you're not, I will be the first one to tell you. So you know how I'm going to end this podcast, unless this is your first podcast. So here's what I want to say to you before I end today. No matter where you go or what you do or who you're with, please, please, please be very, very kind to yourself, and I will see you next week. Bye-bye.
If you're loving my podcast and you would like some more information to be able to follow along with, then please go to drdebbutler.com/change, and you can get a free copy of my companion book that goes with this podcast that I refer to in many different episodes. That is drdebbutler.com/change, CHANGE.